Code.
Aye.
Dries.
Aye.
Halter.
Aye.
Hermes. Lee.
Here.
Walther. Present. Moore.
Here. And Ms. Hermes has excused absent. Let's have a moment of prayer by, so Yvonne. Mr. Dries.
Father God, you put us together in community to care for each other, to serve each other, to help each other. And I pray that we would be good neighbors. On any given day in our community, things go incredibly well for some people. Some people have the difficulties of life to deal with. So I pray this day that you would help us lift those that are struggling and rejoice with those that are feeling joy today. And I pray that you would have us serve you first in our community as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to make a change in the agenda now or a bit later?
Let's do it now. Mr. Mayor, I would like to amend the agenda and add an executive session with no action after the executive session. And the purpose of the executive session is to discuss the compensation of a public employee.
I second that.
And do we need roll call or just?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Kavod.
Aye.
Dries.
Aye.
Halter.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Walther. Aye.
Motion carries. All right, and before we start with our discussion on Harvest Fest, I need to check an email here. I got an email from Yvonne concerning the hearing that she had gone to today, and we have been approved by the group that the presentation was made to on the national, what is it now? It's a historic NHL designation. And so that was approved today, and then it'll proceed to an advisory board, but we don't know yet when and how long that will take.
I checked my notes. I mean, the expectation is sometime June, July. So.
Yeah. So we'll know more when she's back to brief us again. Okay. So we decided that we would have another discussion on Harvest Fest, Hall Fest, Fall Fest, since we discussed it back in February at the retreat. And I'll let Maria.
Well, when we had the retreat, it totally caught me off guard because it was on the spot, you know, where are we going to put any extra monies? Do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? I did not expect that that was going to be discussed as per se. So we went through the channels of the Recreation Commission, and they were all in favor of it, and we had our committee as well, and Mr. Kavod and I jump in at any time. He was looking at the numbers, and he said, well, you know, in a particular year that it looks like it's better financially, if at all, is this year. If we're going to be making any progress in monies or anything like that, would be this year. We will not be as much in the red. We discussed whether or not so close to Halloween had a problem, because usually we get iffy weather. The latest that we choose a weekend in October. So we talked about moving it up, and we figured that out. And so here we are, because we recommended that, but the village manager said no at that time. And we wanted another chance to revisit that. We have in front of each one of us a packet that has the numbers and what has happened in the prior years, what was the net cost right in front of you there when we had with the bouncy houses, the petting zoo, the chainsaw, the pumpkin paintings, mini golf, etc. And the proposed expenses and of what adjustments to be made in here for the next one. And the framework per se of where we have been putting money as for electricity and connections and things like that, we have acquired that. The setups, things like it has been housed and we can bring them back out and reuse it, and it's not something that is a new expense reoccurring. We do have the band, the music, that would be happening. It seems like the hayride is well liked, and it is the season for that kind of thing. So there are certain things that cannot be cut, but according to the net that we are planning in here that we are presented to us is $1,560. Now I also, they have included in here, I don't know if we had the time to eliminate that or not, you had a $1,000 on advertisement. And if I may ask a question to Mr. Caller, I told him that we would have a volunteer that would pay for a quarter page of that, just as it appeared on this paper this time for the spoils field. And it may appear, we can have it on one and also on a second paper. We have also discussed with the village manager the possibility of whenever there is an advertisement for the village that she announces that, to also announce ahead of time that we were going to do that. Therefore, $1,000 on advertisement will not be appearing as an expense at this time. Did I miss something?
Not necessarily. I do have committed volunteers to help defer that cost of the advertisement. I would say at least half of that cost would be covered by volunteers. I don't want to say 100% of it, but it might be. So our largest expense is the advertisement, and I'm working on more volunteers to help with that, and other ways to cut that cost. So I mean, this whole event could be put on, for maybe $1,500 or $1,000, maybe $500. And I'm really looking, if we continue this, the goal would be to eventually have it, pretty much cover itself. I'm not saying we don't need financial help, because there is cost to this, there's expenses, but the revenue brings it all back in, is what I'm looking for.
And at this time, we also, we are entertaining conversations. Mr. Mayor, you made some comments on the community development meeting, whether or not, or what's it, Mr. Halter, one or the other, about the harvest, the farmers market. And if that generalized for the following year, for 2017, that's something that can be a joint venture at that time. The feeling of the people was
Maria,
that...
Can I just add one thing, just since we were on the topic
Sure
of
thing.
advertising? Because I went back and looked at that number, I was like, $1,000, and then I had to recreate, go back and look at it. That actually was an anomaly to some degree. We did spend $250 advertising the skateboard tournament, so obviously that reduces down if we're not having the tournament, or if we advertise or have it sponsored. But at the time, I know the Greenhills Journal was transitioning, and we were having a very difficult time getting anything out there as far as a regular article we wouldn't have to pay for. I would hope that, no matter what we're doing now, that wouldn't be $1,000 in the future.
That would
We
be
just
wonderful.
got down
That
to
would
the
even
point
help.
where we had to do something and get the word out, and that was a pretty pricey ad that we didn't run in the past because we didn't have to. So, thank you.
That even helps more, Jeff.
Yeah, it does.
Sure, thank you.
Did I omit anything else?
I think
you have the pictures of the booths as you wanted to put them in there as the 24 booths.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm proposing. Next year's is basically almost similar to the first year we had, where I think we had 24 booths in the first year. And it just made it a lot more cozy there. What happened when we expanded outward is we really don't have the power to supply that. We were bringing on generators, and I had 2 generators out there, and one wasn't even strong enough to handle one side of things. I feel we grew beyond our limit of booths. So I think 24 was, our first year was great, and I think that, we can limit a few things that way.
I got a quick
Yes,
question. So the investment in materials over
Correct.
the first 3 years are sufficient now with this layout? that we
100%.
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't-
100%.
Basically, the investment's there as far as the equipment and
The
products.
complete infrastructure is there, and it's in the garage, the recreation garage. Yes. I don't see any other expenses in infrastructure needed. Last year, we also invested in GFIs since it was going to rain. That was a hefty investment, but it was for
Still-
safety reasons.
We have those in-house.
Absolutely, they're portable ones that you plug in and makes it a GFI. We have enough for the whole place. And I've been told we have too much lighting by people, so, even when I had 38 booths, I had too much lighting, they said. So we definitely have enough infrastructure for it. And that's another reason our costs are lowest this year. I mean, last year's cost, from what I came up with, were netted about $2,700. And that was at our biggest year. And again, that wasn't so much more because we had so much investment the year before. We've done that investment for 3 years. And all that equipment, all that lighting, all that electrical equipment is just sitting in that garage, ready to be used.
Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody here, but also there was a question in the past, and hence the reason why, the concern at one time was, alcohol being sold, and the premises on the Harvest Fair or something like that, and, we have never done that. And as far as I understand it, there are no plans for that.
Correct. The commission and the committee both 100% agreed that this being a family event, it was unnecessary at this time. And there's also 2 bars right there if someone needs a beer.
Yeah, and volunteers, you with the,
Volunteers, I just want to thank you guys too for all the work you've done last year. And I do still need your help, maybe not to the extent. I have some great volunteers that have helped me in the past couple of years, and they're all willing to stand up and help again. Hang on, I got his name here. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Sean Patterson, his company, he had his helper work with me every day up there. When I was doing the cleaning and the setting up, even the tear down. His name's Woody. He was there almost every day. Sean was there every day helping me. Dan was there. Joel's been there. I've got other people that are coming to help. So I think that volunteer base is actually growing. What I really need from council as volunteers is like when we have money booths or when we collect money. I really appreciate that you guys handle that. If we have donation booth or whatever, or if we have a raffle, those are the kind of things I would ask for you to help with. But as far as volunteers to put it on and to manage it, got that covered.
Can I, step
Yes.
back? Again, I just, as we go point by
Sure.
point, and it's just for clarity's sake, when we were talking about wine and beer, there wasn't a concern, meaning, no, we can't do this. I think we could still, you've had Pioneer Day, we've had Pioneer Days in the past and had wine and beer, and it's been fine. It wasn't a concern that it would derail it from being a family event, because it would have to be under control no matter what the situation. I think that now looking at it, it is much better situation if that is provided through a not-for-profit. And what was brought to the table was a company, a local business that was going to possibly do that, which made it a challenge. So I just want to be clear about, or in case, if it did continue, if we decided to have wine and beer, it wasn't because we just thought, no, little kids.
Jeff, we
My
would only-
recollection-
Sorry.
Go ahead.
We would only consider if it came from you guys, from council saying, hey, this might enhance it. Only if it came from your side. Is the
My
only way we would
recollection, it
consider it.
wasn't planned for last year, but somehow there was some
There was push for it.
press that
It was announced that there was going to be wine.
there
I'm
was.
sorry about that. That was
That's all
not.
right. That's all right. When you
I can't
run an
control
event,
everybody.
whether you're on council or whether you're not on council, and a volunteer steps out and says something on their own,
Yeah.
it's really hard to control.
Yes.
Have we ever, Chief, how much additional police time do we have to put for that? Are you aware? I just want to know, I'm not concerned about the overall cost. I think it's good use of dollars, actually.
Well, actually,
Thank you.
alcohol does contribute to what my recommendation would be. If alcohol is present, I think you have to have
Right.
a significant
Yeah.
police presence, because alcohol often in excess leads to fights and people who we have to cart off. Without that, I don't think that there is that significant concern.
Okay.
I would be more comfortable, in addition to an officer on duty for the entire jurisdiction, to have a second officer there. I think that makes sense.
Okay. Maria, just let me fire in my comments. I'm very supportive of it. I think it's a fantastic event. I'm not concerned about the money. The two things that I would want to be confident about is, do we have enough volunteers for the event? You know, because I know in the first year and even the second year, it looked like Jeff's Christmas card list and some other folks, because there were, and then my other concern is anytime that you have an event, there always has to be somebody where they're the buck stopper, that they're accountable for everything, they're responsible for everything, they control everything, and not to say that some subgroups don't take on this task or whatever, but there has to be one point person, and so I would want to make sure that there is one point person.
Well, in order to make sure that happens, I would advocate for a certain fixed meeting that with Mr. Collar would be present with me, and if you are available or not, with Yvonne at a regular time when we are going step by step planning that. So that way, the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, and then Yvonne may want to disseminate the news to the rest of you or not, whatever she would deem at that particular stage of it. But if we can keep that control in the sense that we go and meet, let's say, every other Monday when we are working on this, let's say in August and September, to at least discuss the progress, how it's being channeled and who is doing what, so she would be part of the loop. I think that part of what happened last year, there were a lot of people taking charge of different things, and no one was reporting back. I think that was one of the major problems that was happening. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my perception.
I think that did happen some last year, and what I'm willing to do is, Yvonne and I believe, work very well together. That's what I've heard. And I'm willing to chair the event this year and work directly with her, let her have the final say without, I'm not going to say I won't push back a little, but I'll let her have the final say. And you, of course.
Can I ask a couple questions, if I may? Last year was the first year that I remember that we actually charged an activity fee. And Mr. Dries and I kind of haunch at that particular booth for most of the day. Honestly, I felt a little uneasy charging $5 for a child. I mean, it came as a surprise to some folks, you know, ones that had been there, you know, previously, that we were charging them.
Well, in the past, we had events like the hot air balloon where we were taking donations. This was to subsidize that part of it. We also added things like we had a lot of activities for the children this year, and that's what this was for. Instead of having them give donation at each one, this was like a one for all. You buy a bracelet, you get unlimited rides on the hay ride. And the idea there was you can take the hay ride up to the common with your children, let them do everything they want to do as long as they want, come back on the hay ride, maybe ride the hay ride again, and that also gave them their pumpkin. So we battled with that a lot, how much that should be, what would be family friendly, and what would be appropriate. So I think we looked at how much we brought in when we did the hayride as a donation and the balloon as a donation. And it seemed like it spread it out fairly evenly that way. I understand what you're saying. It's a family-friendly event, but it doesn't mean it's got to be totally free. I mean, we weren't charging $10 a person.
Yeah, and I noticed it was.
Plus we had
you got $1,000 there as far as your. I remembered $500.
That's last year's.
Yeah.
I expect to have twice as many people.
Are you talking about for this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I expect twice as many people this year. Because we keep growing. We grew 40% last year. Wow.
In the rain.
In the rain.
In the rain.
And
Not
how do you-
people.
How do you arrive at 40%?
I arrive at 40% by, hang on, let me think how I came up with that. I did come up with that with a real thought in mind. It was, it wasn't the money, because we only had a $100 difference from the year before. Question I wasn't expecting, Jeff. Figures.
It's okay, I mean, I get.
Oh, it's from booths. Booth growth. Booth
Okay.
growth went from 27 booths to 38. We went from one
40%
covered.
is reflecting the booth growth.
Right, so we had 40% more participation there, and if we had had the people to, that's where I came up with.
Well, I just didn't want that to
Okay.
come across a
Right.
40% increase of attendees.
No, it's not, no, we obviously had less attendees, it was well attended, but yeah, that was with booth attendance, committed booths.
Does anybody has the numbers of, when you were asking for donations at the hayride and so
Well,
on?
like
what was-
for example, I know the mayor was collecting when we had the hot air balloon. The hot air balloon, I think, I can't remember if it was like $700 or.
I think it was 600
Yeah,
something.
something like that, and we collected $450, $60, $70 or something like that in donations. People are quite generous if they feel like they're getting a lot of value. And then also one of the things that came up too, and I wish I could have gotten my hands on it beforehand, it's a question I asked early on. What did we say to the community when we were looking to pass the rec levy? And I'm pretty sure that we didn't promise events, and that it was more about operating the pool and doing playgrounds and that kind of thing. I'll double check and find out what that is. But obviously some of that could and has offset the cost, and we were getting nice donations. It's always a very subjective thing to compare those two, you know. But that aside, I think of like 4 different buckets that come to mind for me. You know, one is obviously the money. I've got, you know, paperwork on where we've gone with the pool, and the pool is going down rather than up in revenue. And, you know, keeping the pool open, keeping the golf course open, doing those things, I think has to be a high priority. Is this a showstopper? By no means it isn't. So I look at the money as one facet, one leg of the table. Does the table go down based on $1,000 or $1,500? I don't believe so. Another thing was, and I applaud the volunteers and getting the volunteers. I know I can get the numbers, but since the 75th anniversary, I've done a lot of events.
Yes, you have.
And there's been a lot of promises on the volunteer front that just never manifested themselves. And it would be different if I was just pointing to 1 or 2 events. I would say probably over 50 or 60% of the volunteers, not the hardcore work your butt off like Doug and Diana and other people that are involved. I'm not taking away from them. Girl Scout troop helped out with the pumpkins. But as far as filling in the gaps, I have had to call every resource I could get my hands on.
I agree.
So that was another leg of the table, not a showstopper. And sometimes something like this has to happen for people to say, hey, maybe I should give a couple hours to an event if I wanted to have it. The other piece, the third one of the 4, is priorities. And I was just asking the question, I think it's a fantastic event. I was just looking through the photos. I really like it. I think that it's one of our strongest events, given some of the weaker things that have happened. You know, Pioneer Days has kind of imploded a little bit and that kind of thing. So as far as an event, I think it's a fantastic thing. My only question from a community development standpoint is, do we want something like a playground? Granted, a whole different price ticket, rain or shine, it is there. So every time it's a sunny day or even not that great of a day, we see kids there. When people drive by, there's value to the community. It ups housing values, in my opinion. It's a thing that isn't reliant on one single day. And so looking at that from a priority list, farmers market, ambitious thing to really pull off and pull off well. You know, I'm excited to take that challenge on, but at least we have 7 times, 8 times, whatever that is. We have one bad day where our investment isn't gone. So I just was asking during the retreat, what is our priorities? Are there things in community development that have a strong foundation that we should be putting our attention to? Finally, and sorry for going on, but the leadership part. There was a leadership change without any consultation to me at all. I found out after that change took place, announcements were made about beer and wine publicly on television without any discussion to me. Up to the day before the event, I was getting calls saying, hey, I want to show movies. I want to do something else. And then when I would draw a line in the sand, almost outrageous response back. And I understand the heat of the moment, and I've done it myself. You know, it's like, you're going to be lonely in the future, and just all kinds of stuff. When all I was trying to do, I was not trying to manipulate the situation. I was trying to keep us legally and being responsible to the who we're put here for. And so when those leadership things happen, it really makes it a challenge. It really makes it a challenge because that's a missing puzzle. I can't, with volunteers, it's hard to recover when something's been said. I haven't interviewed anybody, but I got the impression, I wasn't a big fan, got caught wind of it midstream through it, of going to the businesses and getting sponsorships. I know we've done that, I think a couple other times in Pioneer Days. There was a lot more going on. At one time, Pioneer Days was heavily attended, and they got value for showing up there. You go by and you can see the sponsors list. I put it together for Greg Hermes when that happened. I was concerned because our businesses in this community have already gone over and above to just try to stay in a shopping center that they shouldn't have to be going, oh, do I have to get the buckets out, when it's leaking. So I was concerned about going to them and going to others and pressing them for donations and making them feel obligated. I felt that the village was poorly represented in those, that's my impression, I could be wrong. I felt that we were poorly represented when donations were attempted, and actually they came back with none, and then the response was, oh, what did council do to all the businesses that they're not going to donate? Well, the businesses have been through a tough time. I don't know if it's our fault. If it was our fault, I'd be the first to admit it. And one other thing is when control is looked on, like I was literally called a control freak, that's fine, that times could be true, but when we are doing our responsibility, and we have a responsibility, and we're just trying to do diligence, and I don't feel I kept a tight rein because I couldn't with my circumstances with school. When we're trying to make decisions and there's that kind of pushback, that kind of leadership cannot exist. I will not have another event, anything I could do to prevent that, if that's going to be how the village is going to be represented, I was even told, and I've heard it even by somebody else that in our faces with us, I'd rather ask for forgiveness and than permission. That is not how we've got to do business. That is not how we've got to do business. So I love the event. Call me up. I'll do the posters. I'll do the banners, whatever. But we need to look at this in a holistic format and go from there, in my opinion. Thank you.
Anybody else want to throw in their 2 cents worth?
That was a full buck.
Yeah, really, I'm not sure I wanted to follow up that, but I just want to make sure that, that whatever you plan to do, that you're following the guidelines that that were outlined by the resolution that we passed.
Well, that's why we're here, getting,
Yeah.
and that's why Yvonne and Maria and everybody knows exactly what our plans are. And that's why I want to work directly with Yvonne, and, I'm sorry, and Maria, and council is necessary, you know, to put this on. I don't want those kind of mistakes we had last year. I agree we had some mistakes. We had some leadership issues. Yeah, I think we can work through those and put on a positive event, because like Jeff said, it is a good event for the community. You know, even the outside people that come, even if it's not just for the people here, we're bringing in people from outside, which is sometimes even better. They're seeing what we have to offer. So,
All right, well, I'll give my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
And I, not opposed necessarily to having the Fall Fest. And it's nice that we bring people, but I reflect back to the days when we had the Pioneer Days, and that was an event the village supported, but the village didn't support it financially. The various groups that ended up running that, from the Civic Foundation on, were able to secure their own funding and carried over those funds. Some years they made money, some years they lost money, but they were able to carry on. And I know you mentioned that it would be nice that it could become self-funded. So Yvonne passed out the copies, Matt passed out the copies of our policy. The other thing is, I asked Yvonne to check with Glendale, since it's a similar town to ours, and there have been people that have quoted the events that go on in Glendale, and ask her, what's Glendale do? And Glendale provides no staff. They don't provide any money for any of the festivals that they have in Glendale. And so you have a copy of the application that Glendale asks that their event planners fill out at least 60 days before an event for the village to approve and review. But the various groups that do their events, from the car show to the pancake thing to
They have a wine tasting.
wine
Yeah.
tasting, those are all other groups that do it. Glendale gives them support with closing down the streets, but they also bill them for some of the support that they get. And in the past, when we had Pioneer Days, it started out that they had to pay for one police officer, and I think by the time it ended, they had to pay for at least 2 police officers on the commons. And part of the problem there was the fact of the alcohol, and things got out of control. And I always worried every festival weekend of what the outcome would be, because inevitably it ended up being arrest or rowdiness or lawsuits and various accusations over the years. It's helped turn my hair gray. So on the alcohol end of it, I agree with the chief. It's a lot of extra things you don't want to get into. So, and as I mentioned in the last meeting, if we could get some of these people who signed a petition to donate money, seed money, to hold the event. But here again, it's up to council to decide if council wants to continue having this event with council subsidizing it, or the village subsidizing it. Council would have to make that decision, along with the recommendations from the manager as to where we would find that money, what fund that would come from. So that's sort of my perspective. And I guess we could do a motion at the next council meeting if we wanted to go that direction. Yvonne can't put her 2 cents worth in. I don't know if Matt has anything he wants to add on that. But it would be nice if there was a way that the funds could be generated to cover the cost of the event. from a volunteer group, or the group that runs it.
One other thing we should, I think, consider that would kind of, pardon the business term, but helicopter up a little bit, because we should, are we saying there's not funds for Harvest Fest, but there are funds for like a Greenhills, and how do we handle it? Because we really should be talking about events in general.
Yeah, that's.
And not that, maybe we have sound reasons for doing one and not the other, I don't know, but, if we say we can't afford to do this and that's the reason why, then the next question is, well, can we afford to do X, Y, and Z? That's something that should be talked about.
Also, one of the discussions I had with the new owner of the shopping center, he was asking about events and festivals and that sort of thing, and he would he likes those and would like to see something such as that tied in with the shopping center. But I don't know if he's inclined to come up with any funds, since he needs to come up with a lot of funds to fix some things down there. So, I don't know if that's something that he could be approached on too.
Jeff, you brought up about the other events. As far as I remember seeing it, the other event was put as part of the budget of what it was going to cost for the Light Up Greenhills, but the Harvest Fest was not.
You mean
Actually,
in the beginning of the year, there
yeah.
wasn't a budget for
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
I don't know.
I remember seeing
I know originally, and again, we have to look back to how this event
Yeah.
started. One thing we have to look back to is that year when we had the 75th anniversary, we had a lot of justification to be doing
Yes.
events and
Yeah,
sponsoring.
but then after
events.
that, we continued on, but
Matt, do you wanna take that as far as, was it a line item or not?
For this year?
Or how it's been handled in the past? Versus Light Up?
In the past, when it's been budgeted, it's all just been put into one big recreation pot. So it's been hard to really, get a grasp of the previous items.
Okay.
It's just starting this past year going forward, it's all been separated out, but previously it's hard to really grasp what was set up.
Is that what you meant, Maria?
well, I just remember that it was a sheet that Yvonne gave us out of one of the meetings, and it has all the different expenses for the recreation, and it had the mulch, it had all the different things that they were doing, the tear up of the concrete on the pocket park, and then it was also Light Up Greenhills was also in that budget.
Yeah, and it could have been, one thing I will say, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, one thing, Light Up has been pretty packaged. Boy Scouts do hot chocolate, now you mix in a little reindeer now and then. Maybe it was a little more predictable.
Okay.
I don't know. And it could have been just one of those things that's been kind of autopilot and not new.
It's run so well, it looks like it's on autopilot.
Well, and that's why I think if you ran Harvest Fest, you would see.
Smoking mirrors.
It's not touching that one.
Now, I've got a spreadsheet, and I know who Santa Claus is, and I call Santa Claus, and I got one person that takes care of this, and somebody else that takes care of that. There's a lot of people that do a lot of work, and it looks like I'm in front conducting the orchestra, but they're making all the music.
And Chief knows real well, a relative of mine that said there's over hell and high water was going to be any beer, or any alcohol, because of the liability situation involved in that. And he's very serious about that. So that would not be something that I advocate either for that reason, so.
So, one other question is, again though, are we looking to set some line down that says, we are committing to these events, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or whatever, or, I'm concerned that we're kind of got things mixed up. We focus on one event, and that's fine, but where do we net out with how do we handle events? If we are Glendale, which I would think they would have surplus money to do this if they wanted. I know Springfield Township has I think it's two full-time community development people they pay. But do we want to take on events? Not that we can't do a mixture, but we need a strategy, I think. And need to come to some grip that makes sense. And then be committed to it for a period of time and see how it goes. We can revisit it.
I don't think we should take on, using staff to take on, because we don't have staff to do it. And that's just my feeling. Now, having them and having a group do them is another thing.
And this was our chance. We could have done all kinds of things with Yvonne not being.
Yeah. Matt wouldn't let us. And I can't remember in the layout sheets, was there money put in for events of any sort?
For this year,
Yeah.
I believe there was about $3,000 set aside for Harvest Fest.
Yeah.
There was some for the day at the pool, the community day at the pool, how much that cost. There was, I remember the sequence that they had in there, then they had, I don't remember the one for Harvest Fest. I did not see that on that listing.
Yeah, on here, with these, I just tried to copy the best I could on previous years. There was $1,000 for the community days at the pool, $3,000 for Harvest Fest, and $2,000 for what?
That's in the past,
That's
That's
what.
based on the net.
based on the net
cost.
cost. Okay, but that's not, I didn't see that the Harvest Fest was included on this, on the 2016.
Yes.
It is now?
It
It was?
It has been.
Okay, I did not see that when I was given the one paper at the first meeting. It only said that the monies of the recreation were going for mulch, for this, for that, and it was not included it was the pool, the community day at the pool, but it was not included in their Harvest Fest, and the paper that I received. So that's what I was asking the
Well,
question.
the paper that you received is probably the plans that Yvonne had laid out with that. money.
Okay,
This is just what I just
what you're,
earmarked in the accounting system
okay,
at the beginning of the year.
okay, that I did not
So-
receive,
Okay.
okay.
This is actually part of the financial packet each month. It's in-
The budget packet.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that when she gave us that other page, that was the gospel from there on. Because those were the choosing monies that was
It-
already thought of and spoken of.
If you got something from her at
Yes.
a recreation meeting.
Yes,
That would be the most up-to-date information.
okay, well, that's what I received, that's what I was basing my question on that.
Okay.
That it had the day, community day at the pool, and if I remember, I think it was about $1,000 on that, and then it was 20 or 2,000 or 2,300 or something like that for light up Greenhills. Then there was so much for mulch for the pocket park, there was some for the concrete on the pocket parks, there was all the different things in there, but none for Harvest Fest.
Okay, yeah, whatever she has.
Okay, that was the most recent thing that I
That
saw
is the
from her,
most
okay,
Current thing.
and that's what I was questioning that, yeah.
Okay. So, where do we go?
I think if there's if this is an item that's actionable by council, I think if there's a resolution, someone's gotta bring that resolution, if it needs a second, we vote on it, and if it passes, we go, and if it doesn't,
Does it rise to that level? I mean,
Yeah, this is what I have.
Well, we
It's an
need
application.
a motion
Yeah.
or a resolution if we have to do an appropriation to have funds for it.
well, it sounds like the
The-
funds are already appropriate.
Yeah, I'm looking at the appropriation. I'm looking at, as of March 31, I'm not looking at April 1, I just happen to have.
Nothing has changed. Yeah.
The appropriate, yeah. And There are, for the Harvest Fund in 2041,
Mhm.
there's $3,000 appropriated for Harvest
Yeah.
Fest.
Which,
And $125 this year has been spent.
with that was just my best
Sure.
approximation.
And within a fund, we can move monies from one
Correct.
sub-fund to the other.
Correct.
Yes. So just because we've appropriated, if for some reason we thought that was a really bad idea to do it this year for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that money has to be spent, and it could be spent on Community Day at the pool instead, if we so desire. So if this thing rises to the level of a resolution and a matter for council to weigh in on, someone needs to bring a resolution to the next meeting.
To me, it's, are we having the Harvest Fest or not? If so, who's running it or not? I think it's a given because of what we set down some guidelines. I think it's just, it's something we should have had in place before, but we were learning like everybody else is learning on, as we go sometimes, so. But, yeah, so however we can arrive at that, it's yes or no, and who's running it, or if it's a yes.
Well, if I may add something in here, the way I understood this, I think it's going to be kind of like a triumvirate. There's going to be Doug from Recreation, there's going to be myself from the committee, and Yvonne. It's going to be the three people, and Mr. Cabot would assist me as a co-chair, whenever we need the help for that. And in the place that I cannot meet with Yvonne one day, you may have to meet with Yvonne and Doug one day. But we work very well together, we can work that out. And I think that if we, have a contractual agreement, that's the way we're going to run the operation, then no one can go totally rogue.
Yeah, that's my,
I think that's the problem that we have. We
I'd say
cannot
bring the
allow-
resolution then.
I'm gonna speak up as the newbie, because I haven't experienced the last 3 years and some of the concerns that Jeff had, but if what I've heard about the road, kind of going out and doing your own thing and not really following what, at this point, is gonna be Maria, Doug, and Vaughn's leadership, that will be the end of it, as far as I'm concerned. But we have to be able to say, this is the village's face, so to speak, and it's gotta be the right face, or else we're gonna be in a bad situation, and we cannot have that, because people think they're doing something good, when actually all they're doing is causing more issues for us. That's my, I'm supporting this, but that's also my, don't overstep your bounds, because then we're gonna have problems.
Well, again, we passed on November 24th last year a framework to address this. And it says, in part, the policy of the Village of Greenhills that events proposed will be sponsored by the Village of Greenhills, be presented to the municipal manager in sufficient time for review, preparation of a recommendation to council. Such activities must be approved by a motion of the village council, and the planning of the event must be coordinated with a member of the village staff.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
So that's,
And I think that,
So,
next
I'm in
week
100%
sometime, we can
agreement
meet
with
with
that.
Yvonne. If you are not available,
make it
you
happen.
trust me to meet with her. If not, we'll meet whatever time you can. And put some do's and don'ts, in ink, in blood, we have to. But I think by this resolution, we have to abide by it. And we have, like I said, we have a triumvirate. I mean, without one going with the other two, nothing is going to happen.
I will share, because I reached out to Yvonne to get her opinion. And also, just so people know, there was some working and growing pains from this last event, but I did not say anything about, hey, let's not do this again. That I've never said, let's not do this again. And wasn't even trying to steer it in that corner. I was just questioning, let's do this responsibly. And she says, I think, in her email back to me, I think they should get or find a nonprofit to hold the festival. And I think that originally, I think she had interest in taking on the leadership role of this event, and maybe, I don't know, possibly others. The only thing I was, and I didn't push back, I just said, can you afford to do this? This was earlier on. You know, I'm not sure she knows all the ins and outs. It's easy to say, I'll take on the event. It's not just a matter of, we got booths and send them down there and we got registration and we're good to go. So I didn't know if she knew what she was saying yes to at the time, possibly. And then she had come back with, you know, from her opinion, we weren't doing the event. But there is, I don't know how we can get back to that place. Hopefully we can, where not-for-profit groups run it within guidelines, and it's something that we just make sure that it's done legally, it has a good police protection and so on. But I think we're following the procedure and bring it to a vote, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
Mayor, can I say one more thing?
okay.
The first 2 years we had Harvest Fest, I think, Jeff, you were amazing. Last year you were amazing too. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I think that's not what I'm trying to say. I should have thought before I spoke. I think
You're growing in your amazement.
I think last year had issues, okay? And well, all I'm saying is, moving forward, I think we can solve those issues. Those are things we can get over. The policy, I think, will work. The policy has standards. It says the village is represented, they sponsor this, and we have guidelines. You've all worked with me, and you know I don't have problems with that. I can take no. I can argue a little bit, but even if this comes out a no, I will be okay with that, and I will continue to work hard on everything else I've done and do for you. So I just want you, I do appreciate everything you've done.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Time out. Who has said no?
Well, when it goes
Well,
to the vote.
It's I mean, the process is you bring it to the village manager, she makes the recommendations to us.
I've already heard her recommendation.
Huh?
She's already presented her recommendation back to us.
She did say no.
Yeah, she's already said no.
Yeah.
So, and I know she carries a lot of weight, okay? I know you guys have the final vote, and there's a lot to think of. Jeff, you brought up a lot of good points.
It's good. And I'm just.
I like your new policy too. I think it's a way we should do all the events. Yeah.
I know we've kicked this.
Yeah.
too much.
Okay.
But I do, there is no doubt you guys have busted your tail, and. a lot
Not
of
just
you-
us, you. Oh my God, the work you do isn't even.
It's good, it's good.
All right,
Okay.
before we go into executive session, I'll run it around. Jack, do you have anything else you want to add to anything other than this?
Are you doing calendar in addition to that? Or your calendar now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do calendar because we won't have anybody to hear the calendar if we do it after our executive session.
Laws and Rules is Monday the 23rd at 9 a.m. Planning Commission is on Tuesday the 24th at 6 p.m. prior to the council meeting.
What was the time again? On the 24th?
6 p.m.
Is that May or June?
May. Both of those are May.
Is that all you have?
That's it.
Jeff, you got anything else? Okay. Lynn?
Nothing for finance, except the tax budget will be ready May 20th. And the tax budget hearing will be 7 o'clock, June 7th. Busy day in the village.
Do you have any items you want to talk about or anything?
No, I will remain silent.
Maria?
On June the 13th, it's a Monday at 8 in the morning, Mr. Cabot and I will have the recreation committee meeting. And, I just also want to remind Mr. Mayor that I will be making a recommendation on the next council meeting about, someone that will be representing us, on Waycross. And I don't know if, the copy of curriculum vitae or something will appear on everybody's,
Copy
pocket,
of what?
yeah, her curriculum vitae
Oh,
and, you know, and application or something like that. I met with this, person and I was very satisfied with all her answers. And, she has honorable discharge as a, Sergeant E5, from the Army. She works, with, video, uploading YouTube, all of those things, plus right off the bat, she's taking all the courses that Waycross has to offer as well. So I was very impressed by that, and Mr. Mayor met me also that day when we were, running the interview, and I would be recommending this person for, representing Greenhills to Waycross. For the
Yeah, I
next
passed
meeting.
that copy on her card to Cory Vaughn.
And so it would appear on our packets then?
Well, I'm not sure if she'll put it in there, but I'll
It should,
suggest
so
it.
everybody, yeah, so everybody would have an idea. If not, you're welcome to mine.
Right.
I brought it along. And if I may, I know that this is kind of on a tangent here, but I ended up going to one of my job sites, Wyoming, and I just made a couple of extra copies in here of what they're doing about the second annual honeysuckle roundup and how in Wyoming they're treating that. And I know that we had spoken here at council before about the problems that we were having within the village and how difficult it is to take care of that. So I just made some extra copies if anybody's interested. That's how Wyoming had been taken care of. And just thought I'd bring it along. I think it's worth considering, worth looking at, and it seems to be working for them and for other communities. This just happens to be the model adopted by Wyoming, okay? And that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. I know it's amazing and somewhat strange that I don't have something else to add. And I know Mr. Lee's showing tremendous restraint there.
Jeff, you got anything?
Yeah, the May 23rd Streets and Services meeting is canceled. We met on the 10th, and I'll report at the meeting, the next council meeting on our meeting minutes. The next scheduled Streets and Services is June 27th at 8 a.m. It's a Monday. The bucket truck is here and operational. I think we've used it quite a bit already since we made that purchase. We're still working on some ideas for street signs, which former Councilman David Adams has actually reached out to me on some updated pricing that he had obtained a few years ago, so I'm curious to see what that comes in at. And we've also struck out with another place that we thought might be an option for us for those signs, so we'll continue to work on that.
I still owe you a quote on broadcasting.
Yeah, the guy that we contacted said it wasn't enough business, I think, basically for them to be interested in doing that, so. I was gonna ask you, but I don't know if anybody knows, I know she had reached out, we were in process of getting litigation against a tree removal company for that load of wood that's behind my house on Andover. I don't know if she got any update, it's still there. We've been sort of parting it out and stealing some of it and using it for fire pits, but the bigger stuff we can't move. It's still there, and I know she had mentioned, I think at the last meeting, that whoever cut that tree down last fall has been contacted about getting that out of there, so.
There's also a pile of trash if you're going south on Winton, right before the tennis courts, the two
Yeah.
new apartments sitting between the two, it just looks awful. I'll take a picture and send that on.
Yeah, and when you see things like that, take
Is it
a
on
picture
Andover or
and
is it
send
on-
it to Connie or
It's on Andover.
Yvonne.
Yes. Do you, the other thing too is, there's a couple sidewalks now that are completely closed off with shrubs by the apartments and stuff. So I don't know if we get a reminder out, that there was, I think each building owner is responsible for.
If the, yeah, and if Yvonne knows about it, or Connie knows about it, she gives it to the inspection people,
Okay.
and they'll send them a letter, just like they do with grass cutting and that sort of thing.
I wonder if that's
And tell
something we should put in our property ownership brochure as well.
Yeah, we got room. You
That
want to
is
modify
right.
it again?
No?
That's all from me.
All right. Okay, so we want to make a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move to executive session to discuss the compensation of public employees.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Cavone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Halter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Walter.
Okay.